Two legendary filmmakers are taking completely opposite sides of the AI debate, with one declaring that he would rather die than use it, and the other racing to make the first fully AI generated film. Meanwhile, a major film industry is looking to a new continent for its productions. We are breaking down the battle for the soul of modern filmmaking. My name is Papa Otu, and stay tuned for the full discussions right here. Hello and welcome back to the Film Mandate, where I bring to you movie news, reviews, and reactions, both from the African front and the international scene. And in today's episode, we'll be talking about two legendary filmmakers with completely different philosophical approach to the AI debate. And we have Guillermo del Toro, the three-time Oscar Award winner, stating that he would rather die than use AI to make his films. And you also have on the other end Paul Schrader, who's written films for Martin Scorsese, like he's also a director, but has written films like Taxi Driver, and what else? Well, he's written films, quite a number of films, the Last Temptation of Jesus Christ and other films for Martin Scorsese. And he's actually thrilled about the use of AI for films. And he's even projected or predicted that in 2 years' time, it will be completely possible to make a high quality film with generative AI. We'll also be talking about Tollywood, actually one of India's film industry, looking to Africa to, as its main production hub. So we'll be delving into all these stories right here on the Film Mandate. So let's start with our very first story. Legendary filmmaker Martin Scorsese, sorry, I, I'm already delving into the wrong story, but yeah, so starting with the very first story, legendary filmmaker Guillermo del Toro just, I think, on the 20th, premiered his film Frankenstein, which stars Jacob Elordi and Oscar Isaacs, and it receives quite a high praise for a well-directed film. And as a result of that, he also ended up being interviewed at the Venice Film Festival and NPR. And in his interviews, he made known his displeasure at using generative AI for making films, and rather stated that he would rather die than use generative AI for generating films. And he made known why that is the case. So let's delve into the article that details what he said exactly concerning the use of AI. So in the Variety article, he did state that del Toro says Frankenstein isn't a metaphor for AI. I'm not afraid of artificial intelligence. I'm afraid of natural stupidity. So that is him and Jacob Elordi, who acted as the Frankenstein monster. So this is what the article says. It's alive. It's at the Venice Film Festival, but it's not a cautionary tale about artificial intelligence. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, starring Jacob Elordi and Oscar Isaac, follows a brilliant but egotistical scientist who brings a monstrous creature to life, only for the experiment to lead to the destruction of them both. Though it's a timely tale about hubris and a creation that spins out of control, the Oscar winning director insists that his new movie isn't a warning about the proliferation of AI. It's not intended as a metaphor for that, Del Toro said at the film's official press conference on Saturday afternoon. We live in a time of terror and intimidation, certainly, and there's no more urgent task than to remain in a time where everything is pushing towards a bipolar understanding of our humanity. The movie tries to show imperfect characters and the right we have to remain imperfect and the right we have to understand each other under the most oppressive circumstances. So, plus he cracked, I'm not afraid of artificial intelligence. I'm afraid of natural stupidity. So let me just go ahead to the place where he did state. So this is what he had to say. That I've been following the creature since I was a kid. I waited for the movie to be done in the right conditions, but creatively, in terms of achieving the scope to make it different and to make it at a scale that you could reconstruct the whole world, he said. And now that he's completed the film, he joked, I'm in a postpartum depression. Yeah, so I'm trying to look for. So yeah, this is what he said in the Variety article. Meanwhile, when you visit the Deadline article, the Deadline captures exactly what he said with regards to his displeasure at the use of AI. And this is what he said: that so Guillermo del Toro would rather die than use generative AI. I am not interested. As the discourse around AI in Hollywood continues to intensify, Guillermo del Toro is planting his feet in opposition of the filmmaking fad. The three times Oscar winner readily said he would rather die than use generative AI in his films, comparing the technology to the arrogance of Oscar Isaac's titular mad scientist in his Netflix adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. AI, particularly generative AI, I'm not interested, nor will I ever be interested, he said in an interview with NPR. I'm 61 and I hope to be able to remain uninterested in using it at all until I croak. The other day, somebody wrote me an email, said, what is your stance on AI? And my answer was very short. I said, I'd rather die. So I decided to bring these two articles together to highlight both, not just to stress on what he said about he rather die than, use AI, and also the other angle, that detail that he's not afraid of AI, but I think his major concern, if you read the Variety article down further, his major concern is about how reckless, or how he thinks reckless, the tech bros are in generating the AI technology without paying attention to what could be the consequences if it is not properly regulated or properly thought through before unleashing its full capacity. As we now live in an age where the tech bros are pushing for super intelligent AI, which would almost I mean, not almost, but even looking at what AI is doing now with a super artificial intelligence, is going to be a different ball game altogether, and that is his major concern. So, if you take the statement he did make out of context, there is the likelihood for you to think that he actually detests, AI and wouldn't want anything to do with it. Which actually, yes, he wouldn't use AI for his films. For auteur directors like Guillermo del Toro, you have Christopher Nolan, and a number of them, there is no way or chance they would ever use generative AI for their works. Auteur directors are the type who want you to know that this is their voice that is not adulterated in any sense possible. And Guillermo del Toro, not just a filmmaker, I mean, a director and a writer, but also, he likes creating worlds from his own imaginations. I mean, there's no way he would want AI to do that for him. He would rather prefer to have a signature all over the creations and creatures that he likes using in his film. So it is indeed amazing that, I mean, it's not surprising that he would take such a stance, but amazing that he would still want to pursue what has made him a household name without the aid of any technology. I mean, any generative AI technology, I must say. Obviously, if you're making a film, you use different kinds of technology to realize the kind of world that you want to achieve, which ordinarily cannot be done physically. There are aspects of it that for a lot of Guillermo del Toro's films, there's a lot of prosthetics used for the creatures, which he does so well. And also, a lot of the things that he does on the background, they are real life sets built. However, regardless of how excellent you would want to achieve some of these things, you definitely use CGI and other, technology to help make it so real to fit within that world that he finds himself in. And obviously, he does his best to achieve most of the things live on set rather than leaving everything to post production. So a person or a filmmaker of his caliber would definitely resort to not using, I mean, would definitely push back against it entirely and rather, depend on his creative juices to make that happen. So I can understand. And for a creator like himself and someone like Christopher Nolan and a number of them, they would rather have the human element to create the things than have AI, make the films for them. And I can understand that stand they have taken. And obviously, I understand sometimes you wouldn't want your jobs to be taken by AI, and obviously that is some of the pushback a lot of artists or some artists have against AI replacing the human element. There's also been the other debates that AI will never replace the human element, and that it is just going to help enhance the work we are doing. Well, both debates could be right depending on where you're standing and depending on how AI is affecting your job, whether negatively or positively. So it is quite a difficult terrain to navigate, seeing that it may not favor all or it may hurt some than the others. And I've been in a situation where, in trying to bid for a job because of the advent of AI, the client opted not to use our services. When I say our services, the colleague I was working with in order to bid for a documentary. And as a result of that, we lost the job. So depending on where you stand, on the AI spectrum of debate, you may likely push back against it hardly, or you may want to be part and parcel of it. However, it has its advantages, and I think it has to be used in certain contexts, circumspectly to make sure that it is more helpful than harmful. So I can understand where he stands. And Guillermo del Toro, just as I already said, is not against the use of artificial intelligence. He's just saying that he's not afraid of it, but he's afraid of the what he terms as natural stupidity. And watching a number of conversation around the AI technology, even to the godfather of AI, they have cautioned how adversely, negatively AI would impact, the world, and a lot of jobs will be lost. And that indeed raises a lot of concern. The question would be, when these jobs are lost, how are people going to fend for themselves? Is there going to be a time that with AI creating new jobs, well, I mean, AI being in place, will it help create new jobs? Can people find a way of navigating around it? And it is of a great concern because the rate at which AI is changing everything around us is alarming. And I can understand that the likes of Guillermo del Toro would push back against it. But I'm glad that his pushback against is not against the technology itself, but against how those behind the technologies, those inventing and pushing this technology into the foreground, are or maybe doing it carelessly, just as the godfather of AI has warned how AI is going to impact all industries, the filmmaking industry not exempted. All industries will be affected so adversely, and that indeed is of a concern. So let me know what you think with regards to this debate, whether Guillermo del Toro is right to protect the human artistry. And well, talking about this, leave your comments in the section below, but I'm not done. This is just one side of the, if I'm to borrow this terminology, AI coin. Now let's move on to the other side of the AI debate. And here we have another legendary filmmaker who has waded into, not necessarily a conversation, but he's also pushing to get films made with AI, and that is Paul Schrader. And Paul Schrader, the 79-year-old who is very open to the AI technology, has written such tremendous films like Taxi Driver, you know, um, Taxi Driver. So many films that I don't even know which ones to mention, but Taxi Driver is one of the most notable ones that he wrote for Martin Scorsese, and he's wrote a couple more with him and his own production, him being a director as well, working with folks like Nicolas Cage, Ethan Hawke, Oscar Isaacs, and a whole lot of others. So he indeed is a force to contend with when it comes to filmmaking, and that is him in your show, Paul Schrader. And Paul Schrader is actually racing to make the first fully AI generated film entirely, entirely with AI, without apart from the script he has. So he says he has the perfect script, which he believes that AI will be a good tool to use to make the film. So let's check out the article where he made this known. And this article is published in the Hollywood Reporter. And this is what it says, that Paul Schrader has a perfect script for first movie made only with AI. We are 2 years away. The taxi driver screenwriter who also says AI might make for superior film criticism. AI doesn't favor anybody. Well, he has a point. Let's go on to read the article. So this is what he said. Paul Schrader is defending the use of AI in creating movies and predicts we are only a couple of years away from the first film made entirely with the technology. The 79-year-old writer director tells Vanity Fair that he's been working on a script that would be ideal for the first all AI project. I think we are only 2 years away from the first AI feature, the taxi driver screenwriter declared. I was just on the phone with someone today about a script I had, and I said, this would be a perfect script to do all AI. It's just a tool. When you are an author, you have to describe someone's reaction. You use a code of words, a certain number of letters, and so forth. And you describe their facial reaction. An actor has their own code. Well, with AI, you are a pixelator, and you can create the face, and you can create the emotion on the face, and you can sculpt it the same way an author sculpts the reaction in a novel or a story. And indeed, what he has stated makes sense in a lot of ways. And listen, he's not the only person racing to make the first AI movie. A couple of episodes ago, I did a story where I think China is racing to make the first AI AI generated animated feature film. So a lot of people are trying their hands on it. Others have actually made a full AI generated films, but you could tell that there's some quirks about it that it isn't working right, and it becomes so obvious that this is AI. Yet, with the release of Sora 2 and other AI platforms or engines, it's becoming more and more visible, or becoming more and more obvious, that there's going to come a time that AI generated films will be completely indistinguishable from what we actually shot, what we actually shoot with real human beings. And that indeed becomes quite scary. When VEO3 was released, VEO3 was released, the Google VEO3, it blew people's minds as to how close of I mean it was almost to a point that if you are not really aware as to um how, if as to how AI is, you can't be able to tell the difference between that and what is real. And we are at that point in time where now it's going to be very, very difficult because quite recently, I think Google has upgraded their Google VO3 AI platform, and they have stated that now when it generates a character in one scene, that character can remain consistent in other scenes, and that was a major problem um, where you would face when you try using the AI platform by Google, that if you want to use the same character in the same costume, makeup, and everything throughout a number of scenes, it keeps, changing. But now with this, I haven't used it yet to tell whether that is possible. But definitely, I'm sure those behind it have worked out every kinks possible to make sure that the character remains consistent. And with that advent of a development, it means that now, when you're able to create a character, it can work out throughout. And even quite recently, it looks like I'm going down the rabbit hole so much. So I think is it? Honestly, I'm blanking out but there is an AI character that I think something Blightwood have been created to. I mean, so it's actually an AI actor, so an AI actor seeking an agency to represent her in securing jobs. And this caused a lot of uproar with several actors and actresses speaking against this kind of practice. And that is the level at which we are getting to now, to the extent that you are having people create AI actors to bid for the same jobs that real life actors are bidding for. And that is it's quite fascinating and scary at the same time, seeing that now, because at the end of the day, the image of actors are that which are captured and put on screen. And literally, if you're taking a critical look at it, it means that if you have an AI actress now, it can work almost as equally or perhaps even competent as real life actors, even though what the AI does is that they will use real life actors' performances to help the AI learn as to how to perform and all that, and that indeed is of a concern. And this was a very thing that in 2022 or 2023 Hollywood went on strike to speak against, a part or not entirely so, but part to speak against it. And it looks like we are at the precipice where now, if there is a first fully, AI generated feature film made that is able to capture the realism and the nuances of what human beings can do, that indeed is going to change the entire landscape altogether. Already, it has changed the landscape. Just as I said earlier on, that I and a colleague of mine were bidding for a job, and this has been a documentary, and yet because of the workers who, I mean, those who work in the company, they advised the one we were negotiating with that, hey, they can use AI to generate the documentary, so why bother? And as a result of that, we lost that job. So it looks like more and more this is going to become the challenging terrain a lot of filmmakers would have to navigate, whether you're going to stick to your guns like Guillermo del Toro, or you're going to go along and join the fray of filmmakers using AI. And I don't think AI in itself is bad. Just as I've already said countless times on this platform, it would lend itself to help a lot of filmmakers who may not have the vast resources and money to create big budget films. So one way or the other is going to enhance. already AI is already incorporated in a number of the digital softwares we use, from the editing softwares to the sound, audio softwares, VFX, and a whole lot. So we are already partly using AI, but not the generative one that generates an entire movie from scratch. So that indeed has become a lot of a concern, and I don't think this debate is going to end anytime soon. Perhaps the debate will even heat up even the more when finally, just as Paul Schrader has said, in 2 years' time, when it becomes a full realized dream. I mean, no more a dream, but a reality in terms of it being very consistent and to the extent that you cannot tell what it's going to make, then that's going to be quite interesting. He went on to further say that he would be interested in using AI to do a film review, perhaps in the voices of some of the great film reviewers, to see how that is going to work out. And just as he has said, AI is not biased. It's not. It won't choose sides, and it does make sense that a film reviewer who won't choose sides would make it more objective in its analysis of the film. However, when you read a Hollywood article further, it does the writer speaks of the fact that I mean, reviewing a film sometimes requires your biases to make it what it is, especially on a Rotten Tomato score. And it is quite interesting that these debates are being had, I mean, at this moment. And we'll have to wait and see how this debate even evolves as time goes on, particularly when a fully feature animated or feature live action film is made and it's so good that you can't tell the differences. And that is left to be seen. So let me know what you think about the stance of Paul Schrader opposite that of Guillermo del Toro. Do you think that Paul Schrader is right to embrace the new tool? Or do you think a fully generated AI film can have the same emotional impact as the real, I mean, the one made by humans? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comment section below. So moving on from the AI debate, we now move to a new story, even though not entirely African, still has Africa in the mix, and that has to do with the Telugu film industry. That is a one of the film industries in um, under the Bollywood umbrella of the film industry, seeking to make Africa its production hub. And that indeed interested me so much that I thought I would bring this article for us to talk about. So this is published in the, is it the Gold? Yeah, this article is published in the gold.com. And it says that Africa, the new shooting hub for Tollywood. And it says that there was a time when Telugu filmmakers loved outdoor shoots. They went all out to capture natural beauty on screen. But in recent years, things have changed, or things changed. With the increasing use of smartphones, tighter schedules, most production shifted to indoor sets. Only a handful of big films continue to explore outdoor locations. Now, Tollywood seems to be rediscovering the charm of shooting outdoors, and Africa is turning into the next major destination. Mahesh Babu and S.S. Rajamouli's upcoming film, tentatively titled Globetrotter, has already completed a schedule in South Africa. The film is said to be a mix of action, adventure, and mythology. The team will reportedly reveal the film's title at a grand Hyderabad event next month, with the title glimpse expected on November 16th. The buzz is that the film might be titled Varanasi. It goes on to say that another major project leading the heading to Africa is NTR and Prashanth Neil's Dragon. The makers are planning a location recce in Tunisia, North Africa, from October 27th for a week. After a long break, the film shoot will resume soon. NTR will join the Hyderabad schedule by the end of November, and later the team will move to North Africa for the next leg. And that is indeed an exciting and interesting story for Africa because in this case, it's going to bring in much needed foreign currency into the continent wherever they are shooting, and that will help the local filmmakers also, receive some, much needed revenue, and also for the industries where they will be shooting at. So that is quite interesting and good to know. And it is indeed great to have, is it the second biggest film industry in the world come to Africa and use certain locations to shoot. And Africa indeed is a magnificent landscape. You may not have the ultra modern studios of Hollywood, and then perhaps even the technology and all the resources to make such grandiose films that people enjoy. But one of the things that we can boast of is very beautiful natural landscapes all over. I mean, comparatively to that of the New Zealands and perhaps Australia and other exotic places. In Africa, we have it all. We have the hot temperate zones of the deserts to the cold snowy areas of perhaps as in Lesotho or down south in South Africa. So it is indeed a landscape that you can get whatever you want. And it's quite interesting to note that prior to this decade or maybe this century, where a lot of Africa is getting a lot of productions come to film. There have been a number of films that have shot from way back even to this decade, with more coming to shoot all over the continent. And I thought I would bring up, I don't know whether I can be able to put it on screen, but I thought I would bring up some. Let me see if I can bring it up on screen. I would showcase a number of the films that I've shot mainly in Africa using the continent, the landscapes available. So let me see if I can bring it up. I don't know whether it can show up. Okay. So I'm having a little difficulty bringing the. Let me try it again. So I hope I'll be able to showcase. Okay, so it's proving a little difficult to bring it up. But when you check on Google, you have several international productions that have shot in Africa, and that is indeed, these are not just any other productions, but very, big budget productions that have made such an impact on the continent. So let's see if so. Let me just start. So from we have you know Out of Africa, which shot in 1985. It shot in Kenya. Out of Africa, 1985, shot in Kenya. The George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road, which shot in 2015, actually shot in Namibia and South Africa. We move on to The Last King of Scotland, that starred Forest Whitaker as Idi Amin, shot in Uganda, the very home country of the story that they shot with. And we also have Hotel Rwanda, shot in, I mean, so sorry, the Last King of Scotland shot in 2006, which actually won for its Whitaker's an Oscar award, and also Hotel Rwanda shot in 2004, which shot in Rwanda, South Africa. So that is quite some interesting places. Blood Diamond, which shot in 2006, shot in Mozambique and South Africa. The Constant Gardener also shot in Kenya 2005. And I think The Constant Gardener, if I'm not mistaken, okay, I thought that was one of Paul Schrader's film, but not. You also have Lord of War, which I think is Nicolas Cage. Yeah, Lord of War, Nicolas Cage. It shot in 2005, in South Africa. And District 9, actually, the filmmaker actually hails from South Africa. So he shot it also in South Africa 2009. in South Africa, specifically Soweto and Johannesburg. You also have the Queen, the African Queen, 1951. That is way back. The African Queen, 1951, about 74 years ago, shot in Uganda and Congo. And then, I mean, the last of the list on that's, you know, Google provided has Long Walk to Freedom, which shot in 2013 in South Africa. That starred Idris Elba as Mandela. We also have Invictus, which stars Morgan Freeman as Mandela, also shooting in Africa. So there are a lot of exotic places, apart from perhaps stories that are tied to certain specific places. You can shoot literally anything anywhere in Africa. Maybe certain cityscape may not be entirely unique to suit certain places, just as like in America, a lot of stories are shot in the UK or in Canada to portray certain cities in America, and that is quite interesting to know. But literally, if you want anything, even to high-rise buildings, you can find some in Africa to use for your films. It feels like I was sort of selling Africa to you, but that's not the case. I'm just trying to let you know that there is almost everything you can find here. I mean, find in any part of the world in Africa. Maybe not. You can actually there because we have different time zones and different climate regions. So it makes Africa quite a place or a buffet place of a location if you want to shoot anything at all in Africa. The Woman King actually also shot in Africa. I can name several movies, Sahara, I mean, several movies shot in Africa, and that is how unique of a place Africa is. So we can provide some locations, some sweet locations on the continent to suit whatever shoot you want to do. Any, I mean, regardless of your script, and that is quite exciting. And I'm happy that Tollywood is coming to Africa to use certain places in Africa as a shooting hub. And besides, the cost of production relative to places like Hollywood and other places is quite low comparatively than those places. So that is quite exciting to see that one of the most prominent filmmaking industry in the world is coming to shoot, use Africa as its production hub. And this is the Tollywood is the industry that produce the multi award winning and multi nominated film RRR, the Triple R film. So it is quite interesting to have them come here to shoot. As to whether it's going to be collaborative or entirely a Tollywood movie, that I cannot tell. But it is indeed exciting to see that at least Africa is recognized for its unique locations and filmmaking. A lot of film production companies, be it from Hollywood and other places, are coming to use Africa as this place of shoot. So let me know what you think. What do you think is what do you see in the potential of Tollywood using African locations? And I think it is indeed exciting to see. So whatever your thoughts may be, can you leave it in in the comment section below. So today being a Monday, obviously, I knew you watched some movies in the cinemas, and if you did, or even if you didn't, well, let's take a look at some of the films that performed at the box office this over the weekend. So let's start with the North American box office and let's take a look at the films that did well in that territory. Oh, sorry, I rather brought in the. So let me rather bring in the. Pardon me, I rather brought in the. Sorry, I think I just messed up my orders. Yeah, so let me bring up the North American box office. Let's take a look at that one first, and then we'll go to the international box office. So we are taking a look at the first 10 films. I'll still leave the link in the description so that you can check out, the rest of the films if you want to. But I'm just going to stick to the first 10 films and their performance at the box office. So over the weekend, we have Black Phone releasing at number one with $27,332,040, and it is number one topping the chart. Number two, dropping from number one, is Tron Ares, the Jared Leto and Jeff Bridges film, and it made 11,114,805, and a total domestic of 54,553,617. At number three, releasing for the first time, is Good Fortune, making $6,163,433. And number four, dropping from number three, is the Paul Thomas Anderson film starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, and also Sean Penn, and a host of several other actors, including Teyana Taylor, dropping from number three to number four, and it has made $3,850,606, and the total domestic is $61,760,070. And number five, dropping from number two, is Roofman, making $3,735,817, and the total domestic is $15,552,277. And number six, releasing for the first time, is Truth and Treason, making $2,627,740 at the North American domestic box office. And number seven, dropping from number four, is Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie, making $1,761,560, with a total domestic of $30,042,375. And number eight, dropping from number five, is The Conjuring Last Rites, which has made $1,600,112, with a total domestic of $175,468,847. At number nine, moving up from number 20, is After the Hunt, and it has made $1,529,394, and it's increased its theater count. That is what accounted for its position on the box office chart. And the total domestic, it has made $1,746,189. And the last but not the least, we have Soul on Fire, dropping from number 6 to 10, making $1,320,138. And the total domestic is $5,561,621. So this wraps up the top 10 of the domestic box office chart of the North American territory. So moving on from there to the international box office, it looks like it still remains the same from last week, and none has actually changed. So Neza still at number 2, and we still have the Fantastic Four Steps at number 10. So nothing has really changed apart from a few joining from last week. So there you have it for the total box office for the international, for the global film industry. So all too soon, I have come to an end to this episode of the Film Mandates. I trust that you enjoyed yourself, and thanks for joining me and sharing this moment with me as we talk about films both from the African front and the international scene. I'll be coming your way again tomorrow with more exciting news from the global territory, not forgetting Africa. So my name is Papa Otu, and this has been the Film Mandate. I'll see you soon.